Clarice Lispector never wrote to explain the world. She wrote because the world made no sense. Before she was a writer, she was a foreigner. Before she mastered words, she knew the weight of silence. Before she existed in Brazil, she survived escape. This is not just a portrait of an author. It is the story of a consciousness shaped by displacement, by the invisible scars of history, and by an endless, relentless search for a meaning that always seems just beyond our grasp. It's an exploration of how the echoes of a violent past can forge a voice that speaks not to the mind, but directly to the soul. Clarice was born Chaya Pinkasivna Lispector in a region of Ukraine scarred by generations of instability, political violence, and ancestral hatred. At the dawn of the 20th century, Jewish communities across Eastern Europe lived under the constant shadow of pogroms, organized massacres that swept through villages with terrifying regularity. This wasn't a distant threat, it was a daily reality. The air was thick with fear. Poverty was rampant, and the future was a question mark. For families like the Lispectors, leaving was not a choice made in pursuit of a dream. It was a desperate act of survival, a necessity born from the instinct to simply stay alive. So, Clarice's childhood began before her birth, began with an inherited trauma, a memory of persecution carried in the blood. Her first breath was not one of peace, but of flight. The journey itself was a crucible. The Lispector family didn't just flee a place. They fled a condition of being hunted, of being other. The long, arduous voyage across the Atlantic to South America wasn't merely a geographic shift. It was a profound psychological, cultural, and spiritual rupture. Imagine the sensory overload, the smell of the sea mixed with the anxiety of 1,000 other displaced souls. The taste of unfamiliar food, the sound of languages you don't understand. Clarice was born already in transit, her very identity forged not on solid ground, but in the disorienting motion of the ship, between a past that was lost and a future that was terrifyingly unknown. This state of being in between would become the fundamental truth of her existence and the very bedrock of her art. Arriving in Brazil, the family sought a new beginning, but a new land requires a new language, and for Clarice, Portuguese was a tongue that did not carry the whispers of her ancestors. It was a tool for communication, not a vessel for memory. While she mastered it with intellectual perfection, a profound sense of linguistic alienation remained. The words felt like a costume she had to wear. But the silence that came from the unspeakable horrors of her family's past, that was a language she knew intimately. It was her native tongue. This constant tension, this friction between belonging on the surface and feeling utterly estranged deep within, became the pulsating heart of her literature. She would spend her entire life exploring this gap between the word and the feeling, the self and the world. This is why Clarice Lispector does not write traditional stories. She writes states of consciousness. She dives headfirst into the stream of thought, into the pre-verbal chaos, where emotions and sensations collide before they are tamed by logic. Her characters don't live through grand events or heroic adventures. They think, they feel. They get lost in the mundane, finding the universe in a drop of water or an existential crisis in the glance of a stranger. This intense existential search that defines her work is a direct reflection of her own legacy of displacement, of a life interrupted, of questions that have no answers. For Clarice, writing was not a career, it was survival. It was a way to stitch together the fragments of a self that had been scattered by history, a desperate attempt to find a home, if not in a place, then on the page. While the world was plunging into the abyss of World War II, a global conflict of unprecedented horror, Clarice's focus was elsewhere. She observed not the external battlefields, but the internal war raging within the human soul. The collective fear, the casual cheapening of life, the sheer fragility of existence, these themes echo throughout her writing, but always in an indirect, symbolic, and deeply profound way. She doesn't describe the violence of a bomb. She describes its psychological fallout within a person, the way it shatters our sense of safety and meaning. Her war was the eternal one, the struggle for identity in a world that seems indifferent, even hostile to our existence. Clarice's otherness was multi-layered. She was a woman in a fiercely male-dominated literary world. An immigrant in a country that demanded assimilation, and Jewish in a world that had just proven it would never be truly safe. Each layer of her identity was a source of both alienation and strength. Her writing doesn't ask for permission, doesn't try to fit in. It intrudes, it unsettles. It strips away the polite facades of society and exposes the raw, trembling emptiness that so many of us try to ignore. She gave a voice to the outsider in all of us, the part that feels like it's looking in from the outside. Ultimately, Clarice Lispector never offered answers because she knew, perhaps better than anyone, there are none to be found. Her work is not a destination. It's an invitation to embrace restlessness, to find the courage to look inward at our own contradictions, and to accept that the meaning of life might just lie in the perpetual, often painful act of searching. The escape never truly ends. It just changes form. We are always fleeing from something, our past, our fears, ourselves. Clarice is gone, but she left behind living questions. Questions that breathe and squirm on the page. And perhaps that is the greatest gift literature can offer. Not comfort, but a profound and necessary disturbance. As long as there are people who feel like strangers in the world, who feel that something is deeply, unexplainably amiss, Clarice will continue to be read, to be understood, and to be felt. If this journey into the mind of Clarice Lispector made you reflect, please like this video and share it with others who are also on a search for meaning. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that dare to look into the abyss.